This video is sponsored by Corvus Belli. Hi guys! This month's video is going to be special. Not only because we will make a forest diorama with wicked branches, cork bark, a water pump and a wood elf from Warcrow, the miniature wargame by Corvus Belli, but also because it's the channel first year anniversary. And because of that, I have something special for you. But before that, I needed to assemble the miniature. After my recent videos, you already know the standard procedure. The key is dry fitting the pieces and cleaning the parts so they fit nicely. After that, I used CA glue, which I was applying with a toothpick, to precisely attach the parts together without glue spills. I sanded the surface in few spots, and to give these areas a smooth finish, I painted them with CA and sanded it down, since the glue is easier to sand than the model material itself. To make the waterfall with real water, I drilled a hole on top of the cork bark rock, where I plan to attach the water pump hose, and after I noted down the base measurements, I headed to Blender to design a diorama base that will serve as a water container and solve my veneering problems that I had last time building something like this. And by the way, thanks to video making magic, it looks like I know what I'm doing, but actually this is my first time designing something in Blender and figuring out the program. While there is plenty of room for improvement, it was a great feeling to bring something made entirely out of ones and zeros into the real world. After I removed all the supports, I made an opening in the lid for the pump hose, and also used a rotary tool to grind through the side, making some room for power supply and to guide the cord through the chamber, which will separate it from the water. I test fitted the pump, lid and XPS foam to make sure everything fits and began gluing cork bark with CA glue, which was not the best move, because instead of bonding both things together, it started to melt the XPS. I wish I had... wait, I have! I found a few hot glue sticks and blasted them with blowtorch to attach cork bark and XPS to the 3D printed base cover. I also planted this tree made from randomly found branch, which has a tormented, moody appearance, and adds to the old forgotten feel of the whole scene. I began sculpting the recess in the XPS for water to collect there and drop into the diorama cavity. I finished this step with blowtorch to melt the foam. Next, I picked another piece of wood that I found a year ago and kept for some special occasion like this. Don't ask me what type of wood it is, I have no idea, but it has some pretty cool mystical features that do the job for this build. I wanted to attach this piece on top of the cork cliff, with roots coming down to the ground in search of moisture. To do so, I drilled the wood in a few spots and mounted it on top of the cliff. Then, I glued twisted wires that will serve as a skeleton for roots. I attached additional branches to better sell the effect, reinforcing breaking parts with CA glue so they don't fall off completely. I covered the wires with kitchen tinfoil to give them more body, so I could add texture over it. First though, I covered every wooden and cork piece with watered down wood glue, which will lock any loose particles or dirt in place, and make the whole thing easier to paint. With wood glue, I also covered the foil so it will not move and will hold texture better. I also covered the XPS foam, which then I sprinkled with stones of various sizes. With AK, Dark Earth texture paste, I made the first layer of groundwork, applying it with spatula and moving around with paintbrush. While it was still wet, I added small fallen branches and roots emerging from the ground. After everything dried out, with a spoon I sprinkled sand over the stones and used a paintbrush to dust them off, leaving them clearly visible while moving sand into the recesses. To fix sand in place and reinforce stones a little more, I used gravel and sand fixer, which I applied with pipette. It soaks deep into the sand and does not affect tiny textures like sand has. I think the key and all the fun of making realistic dioramas or terrain for wargames is observing and mimicking how nature and physics work. I imagined the water coming from the rock, eating its way through the stones, carving it and taking minerals from the inside and forming stalactites and stalagmites. I made them with toothpicks. Covered with wood glue, which was a simple solution, but adds a lot to the realism. Last time I experimented with Tamiya putty to sculpt the bark texture, but this time I wanted to try something I saw on Bartism Workshop's Instagram page, where he shows his cool terrain pieces. I used Styroland Buttermeyer crackle paint and covered the roots and small patches on the trees and twigs in various densities. As it started to set, it revealed a nice dried out and cracked bark effect, which saved me a lot of time sculpting by hand. The top part of the diorama was almost finished, so in order to close the whole thing, I needed to take care of the water pump with soldering iron. I salvaged this pump from my cat's drinking fountain, but don't be mad at me just yet. He didn't like that fountain anyway. I soldered the wires back into the power socket, and then, with double-sided tape and CA glue, I covered the base with this cool walnut veneer. It has beautiful high-contrast wood grain and a rough surface, which naturally corresponds with the diorama theme of Syenann. I sanded the sides and back, but I will leave the front-facing panel in raw state. The wood grain will be even cooler when I apply finishing oil. I sliced off the excess veneer with a knife and trimmed edges with rotary tool in order to level them with the ground. After I cleaned the insides, I glued it shut with a lot of CA. Next, once again I used texture paste to fill the voids in the ground, so it's flush with the veneer, to make it look like the diorama has almost no border. When this layer dried out, I applied the final layer of texture paste, but this time mixed with seagrass fibers and tiny twigs to create forest undergrowth. After this step, the whole build was ready for painting. So yeah, I've been running this channel for a year now. It was a roller coaster with extreme highs and even extreme lows. But when I uploaded my first 3 videos, I didn't even expect to be in the place the channel is right now. So I wanted to thank you all for your support and all the likes and comments you have been giving me. It means the world to me. But what birthday would it be without presents? If you are into wargaming, you can win this Infinity Start Here box, provided by Corvus Belli, who made this video possible. In order to participate in the giveaway, write a comment under this video with a wish of what would you like to see more of on the channel. During that year I made various videos to learn what works for me and what I enjoy doing. But I also want to know what you think and what videos or specific parts of them resonate with you the most. It will help me guide the channel to the next year and bring you even better videos. Check the full rules for the giveaway in the description and leave a comment with the words Wardrobe Workshop until October 17. YouTube is not related to this giveaway. To paint the diorama and Syenann elf, I wanted to experiment with speed paints. The experiment got out of hand, and not only did I use only speed paints, but even speed paint markers to overlap patterns and shift colors in the shadows and highlights. Because they are transparent, I just needed to give the whole thing a white zenithal and some dry brush on the rocks. In addition to black and white, the only regular paints I used were dark red and green to paint the moss, which I added after the diorama was nearly finished. I coated the stalactites and water source with white paint, simulating sediment, but I also used paintbrush and airbrush to shoot speckles of paint all over the waterfall. Similarly, I shot speckles of green paint on the trees, like they were a home for smaller lichens. I also glued in place some grass tufts and laser-cut ferns. One last detail for the diorama to be really believable were tiny leaves fallen on the ground, which I fixed in the place with gravel and sand fixer. While painting the elf, I used the same green that I used for the diorama, For additional contrast and some interesting color play, like a half-dried leaf, I sprayed purple from underneath to fill the shadows. With speed paint markers I colored remaining details, letting transparency do its magic and mix with the white zenithal and purple. I painted his face with green shifted skin tone and used a purple speed paint as a wash. I also tinted my non-metallic metal on the sword with green and blue. After the model was in place, I just needed to secure the walnut veneer with Rubio monocoat, and the project was done. It was Martin from Wardrobe Workshop. See you in the next one.